What is going on, everybody? It is Dylan with DFS coming at you with a new video. In today's video, I'm going over the Week 13 Sunday main slate. We have 11 games on the slate and a lot of value plays this week due to injuries and just pricing. So let's get into it. Go by position by position. Go over cash plays and then some GPP play tournament plays. But I'll try to focus on cash. So, cash, 73, 7,200, Matt Stafford, Tom Brady right there. Lamar is 7,800, which is actually cheap, and he's playing against Pittsburgh, but they do have a lot of their weapons back that they recently haven't had. So I'm going to stay away from Lamar. I do think Lamar's a great tournament play, especially being as expensive as he is, but he does have a little rough matchup here. Against Pittsburgh, and they're on the road. Kyler Murray, I'm just going to assume he's going to be out, and then we'll talk about the Jalen Hurts news. So Matt Stafford, Tom Brady. Matt Stafford, I think, is in a very good spot here against Jacksonville's secondary, which is terrible. They've held some teams up, but they've also faced some weaker teams recently. But we've seen them shut down a team like Buffalo, and the Rams have been struggling lately. But the Rams are at home, and this is when the Rams need to turn it around because that division is getting even closer than it was. So 7,300 Matt Stafford got his weapons. Might be without Darrell Henderson. We'll talk about that. And then Tom Brady against Atlanta, facing one of the worst secondaries in the league. And now their best cornerback is done. So Tom Brady at 7,200 is a great play, in my opinion. Probably the guy that I'm going to get a lot of. But still at a very good price, 7,200, nothing crazy. Jalen Hurts at 7,000 against the Jets. If he's out, there's actually Gardner Minshew at 4,000, which is crazy to me against the Jets. If Jalen Hurts is in, probably still going to stay away. He is a fantasy point god. I've said this since the offseason. What he's been able to do fantasy point wise is crazy. We've seen some slowdown recently. But, like I said, if he's in, I'm probably going to stay away. Next, we go down to Kirk Cousins, 6,500 against Detroit. Them also missing one of their best corners for the rest of the season. And I don't think Kirk Cousins has gotten credit because it's Kirk Cousins, but he's put up some pretty good numbers this season. Not some of the best fantasy point-wise, but he does put up very good numbers. And with Dalvin Cook being out, they might go a little more pass game, even though Mattson is Dalvin Cook 2.0. Not in that same aspect, but he fits a very similar role as Dalvin Cook, so it's not going to be too much, but probably a little more passing there. We keep going down. We get Carson Wentz against Houston. I think is a good play, 6,100. Not one of the most favorite, but it's a very good price against a defense that can get yards against them. It's happened. And Colts need to win. They need to keep doing what they've done and play good offensively, and hopefully their defense steps up. Derek Carr at 6,000. Probably, if you don't want to pay up for a quarterback, if you want to pay up for a running back or wide receiver this week, Jonathan Taylor, Cooper Kupp, and you want to go cheap on a quarterback, that's fine. You have two options right here, three if you count Heineke. I'm not going to put Heineke in that. I'd put him more for a tournament. But Matt Ryan and Derek Carr, 6,000 and 5,600. Derek Carr going against a very bad Washington secondary, but we haven't seen Vegas really do much in the pass game lately. You can see Derek Carr's numbers, especially fantasy point wise, has dropped off. Great game against Dallas last week, with Dallas having a pretty bad secondary. And now he's got almost a similar matchup in a sense, except that he's probably going to have a lot more time to throw the ball, seeing that their defensive line is worse than Dallas's. So Derek Carr at 6,000 is a good play, and he's got people to go with him. Matt Ryan against Tampa Bay. It's not my favorite, but yet again, another pay down for a quarterback against a terrible secondary here. So Matt Ryan, but I'd probably stay away. He is there, though, in a good matchup. And then Jared Goff at 5,200. He's more of a tournament play, and I like him for some sneakiness there. Minnesota's defense is, I mean, you can look at where they rank. It's terrible. Granted, Jared Goff is Jared Goff, throwing 10 touchdowns this season. But with DeAndre Swift being out. Jamal Williams, yet again, a similar role for that team. But Jared Goff, I think, is a good option at 5,200 and not going to have a lot of ownership. And then we go down, and I mentioned Gardner Minshew's going to pop up right there at 4,000. If Jalen Hurts is out, Gardner Minshew will be in. He can run the ball. We've seen him put up some crazy good fantasy point numbers back at Jacksonville, so that's going to be interesting to see there. But that's a tournament, and that's only if Jalen Hurts is out. So running backs. Now, man, there are so many good plays at running back. It's going to be fun. It's going to be fun to see what running backs actually take some of the top scoring spots. So you get Jonathan Taylor against Houston. Houston getting killed by running backs this season. Austin Eckler against Cincy. Cincy's got killed by some running backs this season, and Eckler is doing some Eckler things this season. Seen him put up 20-plus points in 6 games this season. It's crazy what they're doing there. And then his opponent, Joe Mixon, $200 cheaper against the Chargers. Chargers try to defend the pass a lot more than the run, so that opens up someone like Joe Mixon, and we've seen that he's put back-to-back 100-yard games. And fantasy point-wise, at least on DraftKings, 25 is the lowest he's put up in the last 4 games. So it's crazy to see. And then we go down. Najee Harris, I'm staying away. Mattson is 7,600. The price is just... He's not a bad play. If you're doing tournaments and you have a lot of lines, he's not a bad play. He's a great play, in fact, at 7,600. But there's a lot of cheap plays here with great matchups. Also, Mattson, great matchup. It's just the price. It's a good play if you can afford him and you can't pay for one of these guys, or you don't want to pay down for one of the great options down there. Leonard Fournette against Atlanta at 7,300. He's been on a roll. Cordell Patterson against Tampa Bay. He's going to have to be involved for them to move the ball. I'm going to stay away from Cordell Patterson, though. I do like Tampa Bay's linebacker core there. And then here are the injuries to watch out for. James Robinson, probably going to play. It doesn't point to any signs of him not playing. It's pretty much just him being banged up and then being available in the game. Darrell Henderson is a true questionable. You're going to have to watch that. If he's out, Sony Michel's a great play at 4,300. 4,300 Sony Michel right there. So another good option there. And if Josh Jacobs is out, his backup Kenyon Drake 4,400. So some plays there to watch out for. You get Elijah Mitchell 6,000 against Seattle. Really great with Deebo Samuel being gone now. We've seen Deebo Samuel get a lot of running back looks, rushes. You look at what Elijah Mitchell's done the last 4 out of 5 weeks, putting up some crazy numbers, and you look at Seattle, how they rank this season, and it's not pretty. Elijah Mitchell, and this is just a start. There's tons of great running back plays below 6K. You get James Conner against Chicago, even though he's not one of my more favorite plays, just because of the prices of some of these guys. I'd pay up for Elijah Mitchell. He's still there. Myles Gaskin against the Giants seems like a good play at 5,800 also. Antonio Gibson playing against Vegas with McKissick out, which is huge news, and you've seen the amount of attempts he's got in the last 3 weeks, and then what he get in the receiving game for that showdown. So Gibson at 5,700 is a great play. I'm staying away from Montgomery. I'm staying away from Freeman, and then Jamal Williams at 5,400. We've seen what DeAndre Swift's done this season. You get Jamal Williams at 5,400, and you've seen what he's been capable of this season as well. He put up a 25-point game, a 14-point game, and a 13-point game. He's going to get majority of the carries. I get that they'll probably get Jefferson in there some because he's looked pretty good too, and they've used him. But Jamal Williams is going to get most of that volume. And then Miles Sanders at 5,200 without Jordan Howard again, and probably without Scott. So that's injury news that you're just going to have to watch for and choose. But those are the plays. Other news, Collins is out, which he might be. DJ Dallas is an option. I'm not going towards it at all. David Johnson's out. You get Burkhead here at 4,800, so it's just a couple plays to look for. You get the Jets running backs there, but yet again, staying away from that. And then let's go to the receivers. Cooper Kupp, 9,000, great matchup. Probably going to have one of his big games, the way I see it. So I'm fine with paying up. Justin Jefferson, Adam Thielen, both very good plays. I'd probably lean towards Adam Thielen, but Justin Jefferson is there as well. I'm staying away from both Keenan Allen and Terry McLaurin. If I were to pick one, it would be McLaurin against Vegas, but both of them have some pretty shaky matchups. And same thing with Jamar Chase, staying away from that. Deontay Johnson, I like 6,800 against Baltimore. I think that's a pretty good play. DK Metcalf and Godwin are in great matchups this week. I think you could play either one, and it's going to pay off for you. Marquis Brown against Pittsburgh. Yet again, I'm not too high on it, but if you were to play 150 lines and want to get some Marquis Brown, I would be okay with it then. Jalen Waddle, 6,400 against the Giants, I think is an amazing play. Even with Devontae Parker being active today, I think that's still a great play. DeAndre Hopkins, you're just going to have to watch the news for Arizona receivers to decide who you want to get in your lineups. If Gardner Minshew's in, 6,100, Devontae Smith, I think is a very good play, in my opinion. If it's Jalen Hurts, it's not as I'm not as high on it as I would be with Minshew. T. Higgins against the Chargers, I think, is better than Jamar Chase against the Chargers here. Brandon Cooks is in. I think he's a good play. You just have to watch the injury on that, but I do think he's set up for a good matchup if healthy. And then Hunter Renfrow, 5,800 with Waller being out. No more Ruggs. We all know that. It's the same thing. And Deshaun Jackson kind of banged up. Renfrow at 5,800 has been probably the most reliable receiver for the Raiders this season, and he's put up some pretty consistent numbers. So 5,800, you probably know what you're getting out of him. If you want a higher ceiling, Michael Pittman against Houston at 5,700 is that. Yeah, we've seen what he's done with some games of putting up some big fantasy points, and then we've seen some lower fantasy point games. But he does have a higher ceiling than most people down here. Darnell Mooney, 5,600. He's the Bears' number one receiver right now, especially with Allen Robinson being out. And we've seen the numbers he's put up. And you've seen the numbers just the last 2 weeks, 24 targets, which is crazy. So 5,600, it's a bad matchup, but he's going to get a lot of volume there, especially with Dalton being the quarterback again. And then Brandon Ayoke, 5,600 Brandon Ayoke without Deebo Samuel against a bad Seattle secondary. You can look at all the numbers. You can look at the matchup that he's got, and it favors Brandon Ayoke. Now, we all know that San Francisco can just easily not give the ball to Brandon Ayoke, but he's been playing very well, and it's definitely worth a play, especially at the price point. It's a great price there. You get Van Jefferson and Odell, 55, 53. If Odell's out, Van Jefferson definitely should be someone that you consider playing, especially cheaper down for a receiver. A.J. Green, if DeAndre Hopkins is out, A.J. Green is probably somebody that you want to attack for. Now, McCoy's not the greatest quarterback, and the Bears secondary can be good, but he's probably never going to see Jalen Johnson, and if he does, it's going to be minimal. Rashard Bateman at 4,900, I think, is a good play as well against Pittsburgh's defense. It's not one of my more favorites, but just the numbers that he's been able to put up so far this season. It's not crazy, but it's not bad either. Other plays that I want to talk about, you get Devontae Parker back at 3,900, and you look at his fantasy points he's put up this season, and the floor is 8.2, and you're paying 3.9K for him. Ridiculous. So automatically, if you were to put in my two favorite receivers this week, as far as price for what they can do, Brendan Aiyuk and Devontae Parker, 56 and 3,900, is pretty crazy. Other than that, the only other person that I'm really looking at is Josh Reynolds. We saw what he did last week against the Bears. 3 for 5, touchdown, 70 yards. Another divisional game against another defense that allows a lot of yards. And they had that connection in LA, and now that they it's still there, so it's definitely worth a look there as well. Reynolds, so you can get some value at running back and wide receiver. And then tight end. Tight end is fun for me this week, and let's talk why. You get your expensive tight ends, a bunch above 5K this week. Gesicki, Hawkinson, Gronk, Ertz, Pitts, and then you get Kittle at 5,900 and Mark Andrews at 6,000. Now, I do like Kittle and Pitts the most out of the more expensive tight ends at 56 and 5,900. Gronk is also always going to be a play because of what Brady does with him. It's crazy, the amount of volume he gets. 5,300 should always be a play you look at Gronk until he's above 6K. Fairmew going against Baltimore, and we've seen Baltimore get demolished by tight ends this season. They have someone improved, but they still give up a lot. Logan Thomas against Vegas at 4,000 is a play, and then we go down to our values. CJ Uzomah is definitely somebody you should consider for tournament plays. We've seen what Cincinnati's done with him in some of the games. You've had very low scoring games, I'm well aware, and then you've had some touchdown dependent games. 91, 95 with 2, and he puts up big points. He's playing against one of the worst teams against tight ends. He's not a elite tight end by any means. He's probably in the bottom half of tight ends. Understand that, but at 3,200, a guy that's put up 2+ 20-point games, playing against one of the worst defenses against tight ends, definitely should be someone you consider. And then you get the extra value at tight ends. So, you get Foster Moreau at 2,700 against Washington. The one game you get without Darren Waller, 6 for 60 and a touchdown, puts up 18 fantasy points. Even in the game last week, he gets 5 targets, 1 of 5 against Dallas. But still gets those. You go down lower than that, you get 2,600. O'Shaughnessy, and 3 games he's played. You won't count this one because that's where he got hurt. 8 targets against Houston, 48 yards, gets you 10 fantasy points at 2,500. 2,500 again last week. Arnold goes down, 5 targets, 29 yards. They like to include tight ends. We've seen what Arnold did. And O'Shaughnessy's another look against the Rams. The Rams allow quite a bit of yards to tight ends, not a lot of touchdowns and stuff, but points. And then last but not least, Brevin Jordan, 2,500. Yes, Atkins is there, but we've seen him since becoming playable and healthy. What he's done. 3, 3, 2, 4. Not a lot, but he's gotten 2 touchdowns in those weeks. And against somebody like the Colts who gives up quite a bit of passing yards, that's someone you should consider playing. If Brandon Cooks is out, definitely someone you should consider playing in more tournaments. So Foster Moreau and O'Shaughnessy would be more cash plays for paying down at tight ends, and Jordan would be a tournament play. So hope you guys did enjoy this video. If you guys want to get more content, definitely hit the subscribe button. If you want to join us, the link for our Discord will be down in the description down below. We do bets, we do NFL DFS, we do NBA DFS, we do prize picks, so definitely check that out if you guys are interested, and we will see you in the next one.